Picture this. It's 1971. Nixon just ended the gold standard. The Vietnam War is tearing America apart, and Ford just unleashed the biggest, heaviest, most controversial Mustang ever built. But if you thought the 1971 Mach 1 was just another bloated muscle car casualty of government regulations, you're dead wrong. In the next few minutes, you'll discover 20 absolutely shocking facts about this misunderstood beast that even hardcore Mustang fanatics have never heard. From the assembly line disaster that nearly killed 3 workers, to the secret NASCAR homologation program that officially never existed, this pony car was hiding secrets that Ford spent millions trying to bury. And the most explosive revelation? One specific 1971 Mach 1 was used in a classified government operation that wouldn't be declassified for another 40 years. Number 1. The size disaster nobody saw coming. Here's something that'll blow your mind about Ford's biggest mistake. The 1971 Mustang wasn't just bigger than previous models. It was catastrophically oversized in ways that destroyed the car's original concept entirely. The new body measured 2.1 inches longer, 2.8 inches wider, and nearly 1,000 pounds heavier than the 1970 model. But here's the kicker that Ford never admitted publicly. The size increase wasn't planned for better performance or safety. It was a corporate accident caused by interdepartmental miscommunication that nobody caught until tooling was already being manufactured. Ford's design team created a larger body to accommodate the upcoming 429 Super Cobra jet engine. But they didn't coordinate with the marketing department, who had already promised dealers a more refined, European-inspired Mustang. When executives finally saw the production prototype, they were horrified by the bloated proportions that made the car look more like a luxury coupe than a sports car. The decision meeting to either cancel the redesign or proceed anyway lasted 14 hours, with heated arguments about whether Ford should eat the tooling costs or risk releasing a car that contradicted everything the Mustang brand represented. They chose wrong. The oversized 1971 Mach 1 alienated traditional Mustang buyers while failing to attract luxury car customers, creating a sales disaster that nearly killed the Mustang nameplate forever. Number 2. The 429 Super Cobra jet engine that never should have existed. Everyone knows the 429 SCJ was the most powerful engine option in the 1971 Mach 1. But here's what Ford desperately tried to hide. The engine was never designed for street use, and its inclusion in the Mach 1 was purely to satisfy NASCAR homologation requirements that had nothing to do with customer satisfaction. Internal Ford documents revealed that engineers knew the 429 SCJ would be problematic in civilian applications, but NASCAR rules required Ford to build at least 500 street cars with the competition engine to qualify for racing. The engine produced an advertised 370 horsepower, but dynamometer testing showed numbers closer to 450 horsepower at the flywheel. Ford deliberately underrated the power to avoid insurance company scrutiny and government attention from regulators who were already targeting high-performance cars. But here's where it gets really dark. The 429 SCJ engines were so poorly suited to street driving that they required constant maintenance, burned excessive amounts of fuel, and had a documented tendency to throw connecting rods through the block without warning. Ford's warranty department reported catastrophic engine failures on over 60 cars within the first 6 months of ownership. But the company classified these as isolated incidents caused by abuse, rather than acknowledging the fundamental design problems. Today, surviving 429 SCJ Mach 1s are incredibly valuable, but finding one with an original unmolested engine is virtually impossible because most were rebuilt or replaced multiple times during their first few years of operation. Number 3. The ram air system that actually reduced power. The Mach 1's distinctive ram air scoop looked aggressive and purposeful, sitting prominently on the hood like it meant business. Ford marketed it as a performance feature that would deliver cold, dense air directly to the carburetor for increased horsepower. The reality was completely different and borderline fraudulent in its deception. Independent testing by multiple automotive magazines revealed that the Ram air system actually decreased horsepower by an average of 8 to 12 ponies compared to the standard air cleaner setup. The problem was aerodynamics that Ford's engineers completely miscalculated during the design phase. The scoop's positioning created a low-pressure zone at highway speeds, meaning it was actually sucking hot, turbulent air from the engine bay, rather than channeling cold air from outside the vehicle. But Ford had invested too much in tooling and marketing to admit the mistake, so they continued advertising the Ram Air as a performance enhancement, while internal memos acknowledged it was purely cosmetic. The situation got worse when emissions testing revealed that the Ram air system caused the engine to run leaner than intended, resulting in detonation problems and premature engine wear that Ford blamed on poor fuel quality rather than their own design failure. Some savvy owners discovered the issue and simply blocked off the Ram air system, achieving better performance with the standard air cleaner configuration that Ford should have used in the first place. Number 4. The assembly line fire that killed production. On April 19, 1971, a catastrophic fire destroyed a significant portion of Ford's Dearborn assembly plant, where Mach 1s were being built. The official company statement blamed electrical failure in the paint booths, but internal investigation documents tell a much darker story about negligence and cost-cutting that nearly killed 3 workers. The fire actually started in the area where vinyl roof materials were stored, a highly flammable section of the plant that had repeatedly failed safety inspections but was never properly upgraded. Workers had complained for months about improper ventilation and dangerous storage procedures, but plant management ignored the warnings to avoid production delays. When the fire ignited, it spread so rapidly that workers had less than 2 minutes to evacuate before the entire section was engulfed in flames. 3 workers suffered severe burns and smoke inhalation, with 1 requiring months of hospitalization and skin grafts. Ford paid substantial settlements to the injured workers on the condition they sign non-disclosure agreements, preventing them from discussing the accident publicly. The production shutdown lasted 6 weeks, while the damaged section was rebuilt, creating a significant gap in Mach 1 production that affects serial number sequencing. Cars built immediately after the fire resumption show notably different build quality, with workers rushing to meet delayed quotas, resulting in sloppy assembly and quality control failures that would haunt owners for years. Number 5. The stripe delete option that became more valuable. The Mach 1 came standard with distinctive racing stripes and graphics that were integral to its aggressive appearance and marketing identity. But Ford offered a little-known delete option that removed all external graphics for buyers who wanted a more subdued appearance. Only about 3% of customers chose this option, making stripe delete Mach 1s extraordinarily rare today. But here's the secret that collectors are just discovering. The stripe delete option wasn't created for customer preference at all. It was specifically designed for law enforcement and government agencies who wanted high-performance Mustangs without the attention-grabbing graphics that would make them easily identifiable. Ford had a quiet arrangement with several police departments and federal agencies to supply unmarked Mach 1s for pursuit and surveillance applications. These cars received not just the stripe delete, but also other modifications including heavy-duty cooling systems, upgraded brakes, and reinforced suspension components that were never offered to civilian customers. The program was so secretive that most Ford dealers didn't even know it existed, and the cars were ordered through special channels with coded option packages that didn't appear in standard sales literature. Today, identifying an original government spec Mach 1 requires checking for specific part numbers and build codes that indicate the law enforcement package. These cars command enormous premiums from collectors who appreciate their unique history. But authentication is challenging because Ford destroyed most documentation about the program when it ended in 1974. Number 6. The transmission lawsuit Ford lost. The C6 automatic transmission used in 1971. Mach 1s with big block engines had a catastrophic design flaw that Ford knew about, but chose to ignore until a class action lawsuit forced their hand. The problem involved the transmission's forward clutch pack, which would fail prematurely due to inadequate cooling and excessive heat buildup during normal driving conditions. Ford's own testing had identified the issue during development, with engineers recommending either a redesigned clutch pack or an additional transmission cooler to prevent failures. But accounting department analysis showed that fixing the problem would add $47 to each car's manufacturing cost, which executives deemed unacceptable given the Mustang's already tight profit margins. Instead, they approved the defective transmission and planned to address warranty claims individually as they arose. The strategy backfired spectacularly when failures became epidemic within the first year of ownership, with some transmissions failing before cars even reached 10,000 miles. Hundreds of owners joined a class action lawsuit against Ford, presenting internal documents that proved the company knew about the defect before production began. Ford settled the lawsuit in 1974 for an undisclosed amount, agreeing to replace failed transmissions and install improved cooling systems on affected vehicles. But the settlement agreement included a gag order preventing plaintiffs from discussing the case. So, the story remained buried for decades until court documents were unsealed in the 1990s. Number 7. The hood pin holes that weren't optional. Every 1971 Mach 1 came with 4 small holes drilled in the front of the hood for racing-style hood pins, regardless of whether the owner actually ordered the pins or wanted them. This wasn't a mistake or an oversight. It was a deliberate cost-cutting measure that saved Ford money while creating a problem for customers who wanted a clean hood appearance. The issue stemmed from Ford's manufacturing process, which used the same hood stampings for both standard Mach 1s and competition-prepared cars that actually needed hood pins. Rather than creating separate stamping dies and tracking 2 different hood variations through the production system, Ford simply drilled all hoods for pins and let dealers install the actual pin hardware on cars where customers ordered them. Buyers who didn't want hood pins were left with 4 unsightly holes in their hoods with no factory solution for filling them. Some dealers attempted to plug the holes with rubber grommets or body filler, but these fixes looked amateurish and often failed over time. The hood pin holes became one of the most commonly complained about features in customer satisfaction surveys, but Ford never addressed the issue or offered any remedy. Today, the drilled holes are accepted as an inevitable feature of all 1971 Mach 1s, but period-correct restoration requires understanding which cars actually had the pin hardware installed versus those that just had the unused holes. Some owners have spent thousands having the holes professionally welded and refinished to achieve a clean hood appearance that Ford should have offered from the factory. Number 8. The color that changed in sunlight. Grabber Lime, one of the most popular and distinctive Mach 1 colors, had a bizarre chemical problem that Ford discovered too late to fix. The paint formulation used a special pigment that would actually change color after extended exposure to sunlight, shifting from bright yellow-green to a more muted olive tone over just a few months. The problem was specific to the 1971 formula, which differed from previous years' Grabber Lime due to environmental regulations that banned certain pigment compounds. Ford's paint supplier had reformulated the color to comply with new EPA rules, but inadequate testing failed to reveal the UI degradation issue until thousands of cars had already been painted and sold. Owners began complaining by summer 1971 that their brand new Mach 1s were changing color, but dealers had no explanation and initially blamed car washes or wax products for the mysterious transformation. Ford quietly investigated and discovered the pigment instability, but decided that recalling thousands of cars for repaint would be financially devastating and publicly embarrassing. Instead, they reformulated Grabber Lime again for late 1971 and hoped early buyers wouldn't make too much noise about the issue. The color shift became so well known that paint shops developed special techniques for matching faded Grabber Lime, creating multiple shade variations that complicate restoration today. Original early production Grabber Lime. Mach 1s that haven't been repainted now display a color that doesn't match any factory formula, making them simultaneously defective and uniquely historical. Number 9. The quarter panel rust trap. Nobody expected. The 1971 Mach 1's redesigned body included a distinctive sculptured quarter panel with a recessed area behind the rear wheels. It looked aggressive and modern, but it was also a perfectly engineered rust trap that would destroy thousands of cars within just a few years. The problem was a seemingly minor design detail that had catastrophic consequences for long-term durability. The recessed panel created a pocket where water, dirt, and road salt would collect and sit against the bare metal with no drainage path. Ford's designers had focused entirely on aesthetics, without considering how the pocket would behave in real-world conditions, particularly in northern climates where road salt was heavily used during winter months. The situation was made worse by inadequate rust proofing in that specific area, as the complex shape made it difficult for corrosion protection coatings to reach all the metal surfaces during the manufacturing process. By 1974, dealers in Rust Belt states were reporting epidemic quarter panel rot on 1971 Mach 1s, with some cars developing holes completely through the sheet metal in less than 3 years of ownership. Ford issued a technical service bulletin acknowledging the problem and recommending that dealers drill drainage holes in the pocket. But this solution came far too late for most affected cars. The quarter panel rust issue is the primary reason why so few 1971 Mach 1s survive today in original, unmolested condition. Finding a car without quarter panel rust or repair is extraordinarily difficult, and proper restoration requires completely cutting out and replacing the affected metal rather than simply patching holes with filler. Number 10. The speedometer that couldn't keep up. The 1971 Mach 1 came with a 120 miles per hour speedometer as standard equipment, which sounds perfectly adequate for a muscle car of that era. But here's the problem that Ford's engineers knew about and ignored. The speedometer cable routing in the new body design created so much friction that the speedometer would bind and stick at speeds above 80 miles per hour, giving wildly inaccurate readings that could be off by 20 miles per hour or more. The issue stemmed from the cable's path through the firewall and around various engine components, requiring several sharp bends that the speedometer cable wasn't designed to handle. During high-speed testing, engineers documented the problem and recommended either rerouting the cable or using a different speedometer drive mechanism. But the redesign would have required expensive tooling changes and delayed production, so executives approved the defective setup and planned to address any customer complaints as warranty issues. The problem was worse on big block cars where engine heat would cause the speedometer cable housing to expand slightly, increasing friction even more. Owners reported speedometers that would stick at a particular speed, slowly creep upward regardless of actual speed, or bounce erratically, making them completely useless for accurate speed reading. Ford dealers replaced thousands of speedometer cables under warranty, but the replacement cables failed just as quickly because the fundamental routing problem was never fixed. Today, restoring a 1971 Mach 1 speedometer to reliable operation often requires custom cable routing that deviates from factory specifications, creating authenticity questions for judged concours events that demand original style installations. Number 11. The seats that cause permanent injuries. The high back bucket seats in the 1971 Mach 1 looked sporty and modern, but they had a design flaw that caused documented back injuries and sparked multiple lawsuits against Ford. The problem involved the seat back angle and the lack of proper lumbar support, creating a seating position that placed excessive stress on the lower spine during extended driving. Ford had outsourced seat design to a supplier who prioritized appearance over ergonomics, creating seats that looked great in showrooms but were torture chambers on long drives. Medical professionals who examined injured owners identified the specific problem. The seat back angle forced drivers into an unnatural posture that compressed vertebrae and strained back muscles. But here's the really shocking part. Ford's own ergonomics team had tested the seats during development and recommended significant modifications to improve support and comfort. Management rejected the changes because they would increase per-unit costs by $23 and delay production by 6 weeks. Instead, they approved the defective seats and gambled that injury complaints would be minimal and isolated. The gamble failed spectacularly when dozens of owners reported chronic back pain, with several filing personal injury lawsuits, providing medical documentation linking their injuries directly to the Mach 1's seats. Ford settled most cases quietly with non-disclosure agreements, but never recalled the cars or offered retrofit solutions. Today, many surviving Mach 1s have had their original seats replaced or modified with aftermarket lumbar supports, making original condition seats increasingly rare despite their documented health hazards. Number 12. The carburetor, recall that never happened. The Autolite 430 0-4 barrel carburetor used on 351 Cleveland engines had a potentially deadly defect that Ford discovered but chose not to recall. The accelerator pump circuit would occasionally stick in the wide-open position, causing the engine to suddenly surge to full throttle without warning, regardless of driver input. The problem was documented in at least 47 incidents where drivers lost control of their Mach 1s due to unexpected acceleration, resulting in several serious accidents and 2 fatalities that were settled out of court. Ford engineers traced the issue to a manufacturing defect in the accelerator pump linkage, where improper heat treating caused the metal to become brittle and prone to binding. The fix would have been simple and inexpensive. Replace the defective linkage with properly manufactured parts. But Ford's legal department conducted a cost-benefit analysis and determined that a recall would cost more than settling individual injury claims as they arose. This coldly calculated decision meant that Ford knowingly left thousands of potentially dangerous cars on the road, rather than spend money fixing a problem they had identified and understood. The story only came to light decades later, when internal Ford documents were subpoenaed during an unrelated lawsuit, revealing the cynical reasoning behind the non-recall decision. NHTSA investigated but took no action because the statute of limitations had expired. Today, knowledgeable Mach 1 owners replace the accelerator pump linkage as preventive maintenance, but many cars still have the original defective parts installed and remain dangerous time bombs. Number 13. The dealer prep manual that admitted too much. Ford issued a special dealer preparation manual specifically for 1971 Mach 1s, and it accidentally revealed problems that should have been fixed at the factory. The manual included detailed instructions for addressing over 30 known issues that dealers were expected to correct before delivery, essentially admitting that cars were leaving the factory incomplete or defective. The most shocking section instructed dealers to re-torque every single suspension bolt because factory assembly procedures were leaving them dangerously loose. Another section explained how to properly seal the windshield because factory installation was inadequate and would leak. There were instructions for adjusting carburetors, realigning doors, fixing electrical grounds, and even replacing improperly installed weather stripping. Essentially, Ford was shipping partially assembled cars and expecting dealers to complete the job, saving manufacturing costs while pushing expenses and liability onto dealer networks. The manual was marked confidential, and dealers were instructed to destroy it after use. But several copies survived and eventually surfaced at automotive swap meets. When automotive journalists got hold of copies, Ford faced embarrassing questions about why so many corrections were necessary on brand new cars. Ford's response was typically corporate. They claimed the dealer prep procedures were normal refinements, and that all manufacturers had similar protocols. But no other manufacturer's prep manual revealed such extensive problems or required as many corrections before customer delivery. The manual has become a fascinating historical document that proves Ford knew the 1971 Mach 1 had serious quality control issues. Number 14. The theft ring that targeted Mach 1s specifically. In 1972, federal investigators uncovered an organized theft ring that had stolen over 600 Mach 1s using a sophisticated method that exploited a security flaw Ford knew about but never fixed. The thieves had discovered that the 1971 Mach 1's ignition lock could be defeated in under 30 seconds using a modified screwdriver that was shaped to bypass the tumbler mechanism. But here's where it gets really interesting. The security flaw had been identified during pre-production testing by Ford's own security consultants, who recommended a stronger lock mechanism. Ford's purchasing department rejected the upgraded locks because they cost $4.27 more per car than the cheaper locks that were ultimately installed. The decision to use inadequate locks was purely financial, with no consideration for customer security or theft prevention. The organized theft ring operated for nearly 18 months before being caught, stealing Mach 1s from parking lots, driveways, and dealerships across 14 states. The stolen cars were immediately driven to chop shops, where they were disassembled for parts or given new VIN numbers and sold through crooked dealers. When the FBI finally busted the operation, they recovered internal Ford documents that the thieves had obtained from a corrupt employee, showing that Ford knew about the lock vulnerability. Several victims sued Ford for negligence, arguing that the company's cost-cutting had enabled the thefts. Ford settled the lawsuits but never recalled cars to replace the defective locks, leaving thousands of Mach 1s vulnerable to the same theft method. Number 15. The competition orange mystery. Competition orange was supposed to be a new exclusive color for the 1971 Mach 1, but something strange happened during production that created one of the rarest color anomalies in Mustang history. For approximately 6 weeks in mid-1971, competition orange paint was coming out of the spray guns as a completely different shade than intended, creating cars that were noticeably different from earlier and later production. The color shift was caused by a paint supplier error, where incorrect pigment ratios were mixed into several batches, creating a shade that was more red than orange. Ford's quality control inspectors noticed the problem, but plant managers decided to use the incorrect paint rather than halt production and waste the mixed batches. They gambled that customers wouldn't notice the difference or wouldn't complain if they did. The gamble partially worked because most buyers had never seen the correct competition orange to compare against. But when these oddly colored cars started appearing at car shows and cruise nights alongside properly colored Mach 1s, owners immediately noticed the discrepancy. Some demanded repaints under warranty, while others embraced the unique color as a rare variation. Ford never acknowledged the error publicly or offered any explanation for why some competition orange cars look dramatically different from others. Today, these wrong orange Mach 1s are highly sought after by collectors who appreciate factory mistakes and unusual variations. But authentication is challenging because many owners have had their cars repainted in the correct shade, destroying evidence of the original error. Number 16. The cooling system that couldn't cool. The 1971 Mach 1's cooling system was fundamentally undersized for the car's bigger, heavier body and more powerful engines, creating overheating problems that plagued owners and stumped mechanics. Ford had used cooling system components carried over from the smaller 1970 Mustang, without properly calculating whether they could handle the increased thermal load of the redesigned 1971 model. The radiator core was identical to the previous era, despite the car being significantly heavier and having worse aerodynamics that reduced airflow through the grille. Engine testing had revealed marginal cooling capacity that would likely cause problems in hot weather or stop-and-go traffic, but engineers' recommendations for a larger radiator were rejected due to cost constraints and packaging space limitations in the redesigned engine bay. The problem was worst on air-conditioned cars with big block engines, where the combination of engine heat and AC condenser load would push coolant temperatures into the danger zone during normal summer driving. Owners reported constant overheating, with some cars boiling over regularly despite being properly maintained with correct coolant levels and functioning thermostats. Ford dealers installed supplemental electric fans, larger radiators, and various cooling system modifications trying to solve the problem. But many of these fixes were ineffective because the fundamental issue was inadequate system capacity. The overheating caused long-term engine damage in many cars, with warped cylinder heads and cracked blocks becoming common failures. Today, proper restoration of a 1971 Mach 1 often includes upgrading the cooling system with modern components that Ford should have installed originally. Number 17. The emissions equipment that killed performance. The 1971 Mach 1 was the first Mustang to receive comprehensive emissions control equipment, and the systems were so restrictive that they destroyed performance while barely improving air quality. Ford was scrambling to meet new federal emissions standards that took effect for the 1971 model year, but they hadn't had sufficient time to properly develop clean-running engines. Their solution was to bolt crude emissions equipment onto existing engine designs, creating Frankenstein power plants that satisfied regulators while frustrating owners. The smog pump system used on all 1971 Mach 1s injected air into the exhaust manifolds to help burn unburned hydrocarbons, but it also robbed about 15 horsepower from the engine, while adding complexity and maintenance requirements. The EGR system recirculated exhaust gases back into the intake, reducing combustion temperatures to minimize NOx emissions, but also reducing power and causing drivability problems. But here's the secret that emissions testing revealed years later. The systems were so poorly calibrated that they often made emissions worse rather than better, particularly during cold starts and acceleration, when engines needed enriched fuel mixtures. Ford had rushed the systems into production without adequate development time, creating emissions equipment that failed its primary purpose while successfully destroying the driving experience. Many owners disabled or removed the emissions equipment, which was technically illegal, but became so common that aftermarket companies sold emissions deletes kits specifically for 1971 to 72 Mustangs. Today, original emissions equipment is often missing from surviving cars, making authentic restoration challenging and expensive. Number 18. The VIN plate scandal. In 1973, federal investigators discovered that hundreds of 1971 Mach 1s had fraudulent VIN plates that had been swapped from damaged or stolen cars. The scandal involved a network of body shops, insurance adjusters, and salvage yards who were creating reborn Mach 1s using parts from multiple cars while maintaining VIN numbers from desirable high-performance models. The scheme worked because Ford's VIN stamping procedures in 1971 were inconsistent and poorly documented, making it difficult to verify whether a VIN plate was original to a specific car. Unlike modern vehicles with VINs stamped in multiple hidden locations, the 1971 Mach 1 had its primary VIN only on a riveted plate that could be easily removed and transferred. The conspirators would take a wrecked high-value Mach 1 with desirable options like the 429 SCJ engine, swap its VIN plate onto a less valuable car, and sell it as the rare model. Insurance companies were paying claims on cars that weren't actually destroyed, while buyers were purchasing cars that weren't what their VIN numbers claimed. The investigation revealed that authenticating a 1971 Mach 1 was nearly impossible without extensive documentation and expert examination of secondary stampings and date codes. Ford had known that their VIN system was inadequate and vulnerable to fraud, but implementing better security measures would have cost money they weren't willing to spend. And the scandal permanently damaged confidence in 1971. Make 1. Authenticity. Making numbers. Matching verification essential for serious collectors today. Number 19. The brake failure pattern. Nobody investigated. Mach 1 owners reported sudden complete brake failure causing serious accidents, yet Ford never issued recalls or acknowledged any pattern. The master cylinder would lose all hydraulic pressure without warning, leaving drivers completely brakeless. Ford's dual master cylinder system was designed to prevent total brake loss, but a design flaw allowed both circuits to fail simultaneously. Manufacturing debris contaminated brake fluid during assembly, gradually destroying master cylinder seals until catastrophic failure occurred without warning signs. Ford dealers replaced dozens under warranty but didn't recognize the widespread pattern. When safety advocates demanded investigation, Ford's legal team dismissed each incident as isolated maintenance issues. NHTSA opened an investigation but closed it after Ford provided self-reported data, claiming normal failure rates, without examining failed parts or owner testimony. Today, Mach 1 specialists recommend complete brake system rebuilds as essential safety maintenance. Number 20. the Mach 1 that saved Ford's performance division. Here's the ultimate secret. One specific 1971 Mach 1 saved Ford's entire performance program from cancellation. In late 1971, Ford's board met to discontinue all high-performance vehicles, focusing solely on economy cars during the energy crisis. That morning, Jack Roush, Ford's VP of Special Vehicles Operations, arrived in his heavily modified Mach 1429 SCJ, equipped with secret experimental fuel injection, prototype suspension, and aerodynamic improvements years ahead of their time. Roush interrupted the meeting and demanded board members drive his car. Every executive experienced performance that was decades advanced. The demonstration convinced skeptical leaders that American muscle could evolve and meet future regulations. They voted to continue performance development, leading directly to the 1979 Fox body Mustang that saved the nameplate. That revolutionary Mach 1 changed automotive history forever. The car mysteriously vanished after the meeting, rumored hidden in a private collection with its groundbreaking modifications intact.